Hi everyone, and welcome to Tom's Man Shed. Okay, first of all, if during this you hear any jet noises, one of the red arrows has just gone overhead. I'm recording this on the Saturday, the day of Blackpool Air Show. It's been pouring down all morning, but the sun's come out now, so the air show's obviously going ahead, and a red arrow has just flown over. So any more jet noise, that's what it is. So what it is this, it's an unusual video for me because it's not a review of a product, a gadget or anything like that, more a review of a service or lack of service in my case. The absolutely terrible, disgusting way really that I was treated recently by the RAC. Now, first of all, I'd like to say this, I'm not mentioning any names, and this is my personal experience of them. If anybody else has had fantastic experiences of them being recovered, specifically on the recovery, not the coming out to repair you, the small vans, the transit vans or whatever, and repair, they're great. But the actual recovery where you have to be towed away or whatever on the back of a truck. If anybody else has had great service from them, fine. I'm glad for you. That's really good. Stick with them. This is my personal experience and my personal view only, and I'm not mentioning any names in their response letter or anything like that. So first of all, a bit of background. I've been with the RAC something like 11, 12, 13 years now, and as I just mentioned, when they come out in the little vans, the guys are great. The staff are friendly, skilled, and they don't mind getting stuck in. They seem to quite enjoy getting stuck in. I have a kit car. That's the main cover that I need this for, is for my kit car. This is it. Picture on screen now. As you see, it's a three-wheeler. It's called a Grinnell Scorpion. It's powered by a BMW K Series 1100 bike engine. It's 1997 registered, so it's 26 years old now. But it's treated fantastic. It passes its MOT with no advisories every year. I don't do hardly any miles in it, although I have been to Europe twice, Austria, Germany, Switzerland, everything without a breakdown, and it's fantastic. But it is 26 years old now, so if any car's going to break down, it's going to be an older one. So that's the Grinnell Scorpion. Now, like I say, over the years, I've had a couple of breakdowns. Once was a clutch cable snapped on my way home, and the guy came out pretty quick. He was there within an hour, and he got really stuck in. He was what we call dash diving in the nose of the car with his legs in mid-air, and he put a whole new inner clutch cable in and said that'll do you to get you home, and he ordered a brand new full clutch cable after I've left that old one in as a spare in case it ever happens again. Another time, a wire had come off a switch to the fuel pump, and he managed to sort that, bypass the switch and get me on my way. So they are great like that. And once, many, many years ago, a week after I'd come back from the Euro trip, believe it or not, 3,000 miles around Europe without a problem, the wishbone collapsed on my way home. Luckily, just about 3 miles from home, right opposite a garage, I cruised into the garage, recovery truck came within about 2 or 3 hours, and I was on my way home. So that was great. That was 2014, right? Since then, the service I've had has been sort of down the drain. The last time I called them was before this incident, was about 4 years ago. I'd been to a car show in Lytham St Anne's. I was coming home, and again, a sudden power failure, pulled in. It was right opposite a hospital. We went into the hospital, could have a coffee and everything, so that was okay. I rang them up, and after 3.5 hours of waiting for them to recover it, they still hadn't arrived. So I made other arrangements. It was a fuel pump failure this time, and I made other arrangements, and my daughter went to my house, collected the A-frame and towed me home on the A-frame. That was 4 years ago. That was the last time I used them before this. So I thought it might be a blip. I'll stay with them. It was a bank holiday, that. And after waiting 3.5 hours, they hadn't come. But like I say, it was a lovely day. I had my daughter with me. The hardship wasn't too much, so I thought, I'll allow him that, I'll give him a blip. Anyway, finally to this incident, but I thought I'd give you that, saying that my complaint is about the recovery service, when you have to be recovered on the back of a flatbed truck. That's, in my circumstances, is where they've fallen flat on the face twice now on the trot, particularly this one, which was the last straw. So what happened was, 2 weeks ago, 28th of July, I was on my way to a meet-up weekend at Chatsworth House on the Sunday. I set off on the Friday. I was booked into a Premier Inn at Mansfield for... That's one of red arrows. Okay, back to the video. I was booked in at a Premier Inn at Mansfield for the Friday night and the Saturday night, and then the Sunday we were going to meet up, go to the car show at Chatsworth House, then drive home after that. So there was like 3 or 4 scorpions going. We were all going to meet up at Premier Inn. We were all booked in there for 2 days. I booked the 2 nights accommodation, the meal deals for 2 nights. Luckily, Premier Inn have refunded the meal deals. I've lost all my money on the accommodation, but Premier Inn were kind enough to repay me up the 49 quid for the 2 meal deals. But like I say, that's not the RAC's fault, obviously. It's just one of them things. But I'd set off on the Friday at about 1:30, hoping to arrive round about 4 o'clock at Mansfield. That was what it forecast, 2.5 hours driving. You can't book in till after 3. I thought, get there about 4. The table was booked for us all at 7 o'clock. Great. Gets on the firstly the M62, roadworks. The traffic was absolutely static. Here's what it was like, little clip that I took on the way down there. You can see totally non-moving traffic, and that was for about an hour. So I was in that for about an hour, and then it sped up a bit. I got onto the M1. I was on the M1 for a bit, and again the same, static traffic in that. Moving along, thinking, I'm going to be late, but no problem. Suddenly there was this high-pitched squeal and horrible noise from the front of the car. Now there's only one moving part in the front of the car, and that is the radiator fan. Now, you should probably know the radiator fan really is only needed when you're in stop-start traffic and on an extremely hot day. So there I was, worst possible scenario. It was a scorching hot day. I was surrounded by big, heavy, hot trucks, not moving anywhere, no flow of air over the radiator, and the fan had gone. And sure enough, the temperature starts creeping up and up and up. The red light came on, the instrument cluster, the separate temperature gauge was getting hotter and hotter and hotter towards hot, and steam starts pouring into the cabin area. So it's open top, totally open top, there's no roof. So I thought, I'm in trouble here. The engine sounded all right, didn't sound like it was going to seize or anything, but I thought, what do I do? I'm in sort of like the middle lane on the motorway. Luckily, I was near an exit and the traffic just started moving enough, and I got off at the exit. It was exit 31, M1, Rotherham. Goes round the roundabout, and I just pulls in at an industrial estate where there was a HALFORDS and a couple of other shops. Gets the tail cone off the car, the nose cone off the car. Like I say, steam everywhere. All the luggage and stuff in the back was wet. That's where the expansion vessel for the radiator is. So I knew I was in trouble. I dared carry on. Even if I filled it all up with water again, with stop-start traffic, it had only overheated. I felt the fan blades seized up solid. Sounded fine when I set off, and the last time it kicked in was great. It's one of them things you can't anticipate the motor is going to seize on that. It wasn't making funny noises before I set off. I did all the safety checks, tyre pressures, oil, everything, radiator coolant level, and it's just one of them things. It can go at any time, and it did. So yeah, as you can see there, totally melted around the brushes in the motor. But like I say, when I set off from home, or last time I heard it running, no sign that's going to happen. So that's just a catastrophic sort of sudden failure. No pre-warning. If you want to, not to do this video, but if you want to see how I replaced that and fitted an upgraded fan unit in the car, check out my last video. It's all about doing that. So anyway, that was that just showed you what was wrong with the motor. So once I'd got all my stuff out of the thing and the car was cooling off, I sat in it and I rang the RAC. Now, when you ring, in the past, the last time I rang, it was just ring through a breakdown, say 4 years ago or so, and that was it. Now they advise you to use the website or the app. They say it's going to be a quicker response if you use that. So you ring the number on the app, and it's like, press button 1 if you've broken down, press button 2 if you're doing this, that. So you press button 1, then you press button 1 again. Finally, you get through to somebody, and you get through, and it says, why have you broken down? What do you think is wrong? Is the position you've broken down what your phone is saying now and all that? And then somebody rings you back. So that was reasonably efficient, around about in a couple of minutes. And he asks you the usual things, you know, your registration, blah, 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 membership number and that. And I explained to him I was in an open top car, no roof on this thing. So if it rains, you get wet, there's no protection. I was pretty much in the middle of nowhere. It was an isolated industrial estate with 3 stores on it. This was 5:30. The barrier to this place closes at 8 o'clock and is locked. So before 8, I had to get it on the road. And I told him it was a 3-wheel car, so it would need a flatbed truck. Doesn't need particularly specialist equipment, just a flatbed truck. It's had a flatbed truck to recover it before. No problem whatsoever when the wishbone broke. And that was on my own and so on. So he said, right, I'll try and prioritise it, but so I'll take it from here. So I rang them at it, yeah. Yeah, so he had an ETA of 9 p.m. This is 5:30, right? He says, yeah, we're very, very busy. This was a normal Friday. It wasn't a bank holiday. Okay, it was in the school holidays. It was a warm day, but it was a Friday. It wasn't a Saturday or a Sunday. It wasn't a weekend. It wasn't a bank holiday. But he says, we're very, very busy. We'll give you an ETA of about 9 p.m, but it could be before. So I thought, oh, good grief, now I'm going to have to wait like 3.5 hours, but fair enough. I thought, fair enough. And I explained all the thing about the car. Every time I rang, there's a thing it says, do you want an ETA? So you ring, you press button thing, you say, yes. So after like a couple of hours, I wondered, is it still going to be 9? I'll get an ETA. Every time, and this is every time, you rung the ETA thing, you press the button, it comes back a recorded voice. Your ETA is within the next 30 minutes. It's just a generic recorded voice they play to you. They obviously don't look at what the actual ETA will be and that they're struggling to get somebody to it. It's just a ETA 30 minutes. That's all it ever says. There is another thing that gives you an update of your ETA. I kept going on that. It was last updated at 6:30. I went on it at 8:30, 9:30, 10:30 at night. Last updated 6:30. So that was never updated. So we're up to a 9 o'clock ETA. And I explained again, yeah, well, I am open to it. If it rains, I'm going to get wet. So they rang me back at... after I rung them, there's a thing you can say, please ring, you know, do you want to speak to somebody? Do you want somebody to ring you back after you've pressed a few numbers? And you've got to say yes. And then somebody rings you back. Never during this time did they ring off their own bat to say, oh, sorry, Mr. Ross, you know, we realise you've been waiting 3 or 4 hours now. He's going to be there in an hour. It's going to be longer or whatever. Never once did they do that. They only rang back when I rang them and requested a call back. So they rang me back from a Manchester number, 0161 phone rang, at 6:30 to say they were getting a local company to me, Richford Motor Services. So obviously they've not got their own fleet of flatbed trucks, or they were all taken up or whatever. This is quite common, I think, with most major things. If they haven't got their own vehicle ready, they will ring a local firm to go. Now this Richford Motor Services, I've looked at their website. They seem to specialise in commercial vehicles or specialised vehicles. Now, mine is neither. It's not commercial. It's specialised in as much as it's three-wheel, but that is it. It'll fit on a standard flatbed truck. There's nothing other than specialised about it. You could even winch the front up and tow it. It's fine towing it on the back wheel moving. It's been towed on an A-frame before, no problem at all. So this local company, Richford Services, that's what they're getting to me. Then this Richford rung me at 19:08, 8 minutes past 7, and said it could be up to 11 o'clock tonight. Again, I says, oh my God, you are joking. I've been here since 5:30. It could be 11. He says, yeah, it could be up to 11 p.m. So I rang them direct and got an ETA. I rang them direct for an ETA at 21:34, so 25 to 10. And there was no answer after 1 minute. It was just ringing out. So I gave up that. Rung them a minute later. They picked it up this time after about half a minute and said it should still be 11 o'clock, but they would let me know otherwise if nobody turned up at 11 or it was going to be later than 11. Nobody rang me back. So I then rang the RAC again, going through all the voice instructions yet again. Do you want to speak to somebody? Yes. At 10:05, because the ETA'S were just saying 30 minutes, useless. And I got to speak to somebody, and he put me on hold, and then it got cut off halfway through the conversation. Just got cut off. Credit, he rang me straight back. Probably a mistake, just pressed a button or something. Not a mistake on my part, but for some reason it got cut off. He rings me back, and this is through a Walsall number now. 01922 437 200 at 10:15, saying that he would get in touch with Richford Services and get them to ring me. Nobody rang me. So it's now, where are we now? Yeah, so 22. So I rang again. After 11, being an industrial estate, it's now beginning to fill up with sort of like boy racers. A few sort of like, I think there was a Scooby and some other hot hatch arrived, and there's loud discussion and revving of engines and that. Didn't feel particularly threatened, but because they left me alone. Later on, they came over and had a good chat, and they were nice and friendly. But it wasn't the ideal situation, so like I say, I'm just there. I'm on the road by now, and on double yellow lines. That's the only place I can park because they've locked up the industrial estate. So I rang the RAC again at midnight, and they said, "Oh, they're definitely on the way, but they couldn't give me an ETA." So I rang this Richford Services a minute later, 23:44, because I had their number after him ringing me back. And he then told me it's going to be another 87 minutes. Now this is midnight, nearly midnight. So it's going to be at least another till 1:30 in the morning. And I've been there since 5:30. Right? So I told him, I says, and it had rained. It rained for about half an hour. I got my waterproofs on. It wasn't heavy rain, so it wasn't too bad. So I explained now that this is just ridiculous, 1:30, and even then, no thing. And he said, well, do you want me to get the driver to ring you straight back now to definitely tell you? I says, yes, please. Nobody rang me back. Next 10 minutes, nobody rang me back. So I'm getting to think now, nobody's going to come. Nobody sort of really cares. They don't ring you back to apologise. Every time you ring, you talk to a different operative, Walsall, Manchester, whatever. And yeah, it is just as if I'd been abandoned. So reluctantly, I thought I'm just going to have to make my own way home and risk it. Now, like I say, being the radiator fan on the thing, it only kicks in when there's no flow of air. If you're travelling along on a cool day, or you're constant travelling, the flow of air, it's usually okay, and that you don't need your fan at all. This is for any vehicle, your car or whatever. You'll find that your fan only kicks in when you're stopped, usually. So I thought I'm just going to have to risk it. Now, all this time, me two daughters, who are absolutely great to me, they were dead worried about me stuck there where I was. And I says, no, I'm all right. Like, I says, no, Dad, we're going to come and do something, follow you back or whatever. So I rung them and I said, look, I'm going to have to try and get home. I should be okay because the motorway should be empty by now. Shouldn't be any static traffic at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And it had cooled down, obviously, because it was night. So I thought I'll probably be all right. I'd filled up all with the new water while I was waiting in near HALFORDS. HALFORDS were great. They let me use the toilet before they shut, obviously. They let me fill my water bottle for the car. I filled it all up. I got all the water levels, so I was ready to go. Apart from the fan motor, obviously. So I'm just squeezing this bit in now because I'm enjoying editing. I thought, oh, you might be wondering why I mentioned earlier on when I waited 3 hours for them, three and a half hours from 4 years ago, and they never turned up, that I managed to get my daughter to tow me back home with an A-frame I've got. I bought a special A-frame off Grinnell's years ago for towing. The plan was then behind my camper van. But I managed to get her to pick it up and tow me home with that. Well, A, I was only broken down in Lytham St Anne's, which was about 8 miles from home. And B, at that time, she had a different car, Vauxhall Zafira, with a tow bar on it. Now, this is now 120 miles from home, and she hasn't got a tow bar on her current car. So that was out of the question. There's no means of me getting home towing it with my own tow bar, so my own A-frame, so I thought I'd just squeeze that bit in. So they rung me up and said, yeah, right, we're going to come out, Dad. So I says, well, don't come here because I'm setting off home now, and I'm going to see if I can reach the motorway. If it starts overheating before I reach the motorway, I'm going to come home non-motorway roads. I didn't want to break down on the motorway. Anyway, I got to the motorway and it was perfect. The temperature was under normal. It was great. The roads were deserted and it was cooler. So I thought I'll take it easy on the motorway. Again, it was empty motorways, and I'll pull in at every service station I can if it starts going up temperature. So I gets ready, I packs all my stuff for me. Luckily I'd taken some food and some drinks and that. After I used the toilet in HALFORDS, I had to pee in a bottle while sat in my car, protected. Nobody was there anyway, but like, you never know. You don't even wee behind a fence, can you, in case you get caught for indecent exposure or something. And then I had to pour it down a grid. This is what you have to do. And I set off home at round about, I don't know, about this time, about 12:30, getting off at 1 o'clock. And I gets to the first services, fills up with petrol, I was fine. And then I meets the girls at Hartshead Moor services. It's split into two on different things, so they had to go up the junction and come back. And then from then on, they followed me home, and it was fine. It didn't move a beat from normal. There was no cause for concern. It's keeping it to about 50, 60 on the motorway. And the first sign of distress, I'd have pulled off again. But no, it was fine, and I got all the way home. It started raining on the way home, which was better for the cooling. And we gets home at 4:30 in the morning. I'd been sat in my car, 15 hours, I think. I'd been sat waiting for the RAC for 7, nearly 8 hours. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot. And by the way, you can cancel them. Now, in all the sort of like panic to get home, I forgot to cancel them as soon as I set off home. And I didn't cancel till I reached the first services. I thought, I didn't cancel the RAC. At like by this time 1:30 or something. Now, they'd not rung me saying, "We're there, Mr. Ross, at your reported position, and you're not there." Nobody'd rung, so they hadn't even turned up by 1:30, which was like well over 8 hours. So that's when I cancelled them, and you just cancel them on your app on the phone. You don't even have to speak to somebody. So that is when I cancelled them. That's important in their response later on, which was a crazy, insulting response. So, that was my experience. 7 to 8 hours sat waiting for them. You use the app for an ETA, and it's just a generic voice every single time. Your ETA is in the next 30 minutes. That's it. That's all they ever send. The text sort of like ETA, where it says between 6:30 and 9:30 or whatever, wasn't updated after 6:30. So long after 6:30, which was only an hour after I reported it, it was never updated again after that. Not once did they ring me, either them or Richford Services, ring me off their own bat, apart from the first Richford Services one, saying, I'm the driver, I am on my way, Mr. Ross, I'm sorry I've been delayed or whatever. Not once. Only rung me back when I rang them and asked physically yes on the app for a call back. So that's where I stood. So home at 4:30. So I wrote them that letter explaining all that. So I've put on here, and this is true now, if I'd have had no cover whatsoever, it'd have been better, because I'd have broken down at 5:30 knowing I was not in any recovery service, and I'd have made my own plans then. I'd have said right to the girls, come out to me, drive the 120 miles it was from home, bring plenty of water to keep topping me up on the way home, and I'll set off home now. I didn't say this earlier on, but I daren't have asked to go to the Premier Inn, which was only sort of like another half hour away, because I might have been in static traffic then when I broke down. How do I get it home the following day during daylight on a Saturday? It's going to be heavy traffic. It'd have overheated then. So I had no option but to actually go home. But if I wasn't in the RAC or anybody, I'd have made the decision at 5:30, right, I've got to get myself home. I'll ring the girls, get them to come out, follow me home, bring me plenty of water. I'd have been home. It was only because I was waiting for them, who kept giving me extended ETAs and giving me hope when there was no hope, that I hung on till like 1 o'clock in the morning. So I've put on it like it was, it's worse than actually not being a member, because if I wasn't a member, I'd have done what I did a lot earlier instead of waiting for ETAs, which were plainly lies. Now, to my mind, they are a lie when they're not saying, oh, we're trying our best to get there and here's your ETA. It is lying to you saying, we're going to be there in 30 minutes, when they know damn well it's not going to be 30 minutes. Yeah, I've put on here, on doing research, I'm plainly not alone. After an online case, a lady was left for 15 hours. This is well documented on Google. If you type in RAC, leaves woman 15 hours. I think she had a relative with her or something, elderly relative or whatever. And after that, the spokesman said, this is not good enough and we will sort it out. So, we'll look into this in the future and make sure it doesn't happen. Well, it clearly is. So that was my letter to them. I've put here, you may clearly blame third parties, like in this case Richford Services, but it's you I've paid my money to and you're responsible. Why don't you buy a fleet of flatbed trucks yourself instead of relying on local firms? If they were housed centrally, they could have got to me in half the time. So this is the response I got from the RAC. They did reply the very next day. Membership number, and like I say, I'm not saying the person's name, but he's a customer care person. And it just says, Dear Mr. Ross, thank you for contacting us. My name is blah, 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 and it's my responsibility to investigate your experience and provide you with an outcome. I'm extremely sorry for the delay in which you encountered on the 28th of July 2023. I can see why you are frustrated and upset. The attendance for our contractors to attend and recover your vehicle had taken longer than we anticipated. You're not kidding. Thank you very much for letting us know your views about our communications during your breakdown. I completely agree this should have been better, and am therefore passing your feedback on to the wider management team. I'm sorry for the delay you experienced and the inconvenience it caused you. While we normally get to most of our members within an hour, the mend it on the roadside guys, who then ring for a recovery truck if they can't mend it, but not your recovery. Your recovery trucks don't get here in an hour. We can't guarantee attendance as there are often circumstances outside of our control, such as the weather. The weather was hot, so it wasn't one stormy or snowy or anything. Traffic and emergencies. The traffic when I broke down was chock-a-block on the motorway. Later on at night it had eased off as it did, which caused delays. As your experience didn't meet the high standard of service we pride ourselves on delivering, we're sending a cheque for £50 as a gesture of goodwill. The membership was like 120 quid for me. A personal one, not the car, any vehicle I'm in. This will be with you within 14 working days. It was, a cheque. Couldn't pay the money direct into my account. It's a cheque. I've got to go to the post office to check that in because the nearest bank branch is 5 miles away in the middle of the town centre. While I appreciate this was longer than you'd have liked, I can assure you we'd have made every effort to get to you much sooner. So I'm unable to agree. This is what got me. I am unable to agree that you'd have been waiting this long if you hadn't cancelled your call for assistance. I'll just read you that again. I am unable to agree you'd have been waiting this long if you hadn't cancelled your call for assistance. I cancelled my call... Sorry, I'm getting mad. I cancelled my call for assistance 7 to 8 hours after I rang you. I was hanging on. I didn't cancel until I decided to go home. And then it was about an hour after I'd set off home and you still hadn't turned up. So I only cancelled after you didn't come. So what's that about? I'm unable to agree you've been waiting this long. If you hadn't cancelled... That sounds like because I cancelled it, I wouldn't have been waiting that long. Well, how crazy is that? If I'd have cancelled... That sounds like I cancelled it after an hour or something. I didn't cancel it. I just kept waiting and waiting and waiting with their non-existent ETA'S for them to turn up. Only then did I cancel it. Sorry, I'm really getting mad. So, I'm sorry our service didn't meet your expectations, but I hope you can also appreciate our position. No, I can't really. I can appreciate it if it was like heavy snow, tons of motorways closed, Christmas week, bank holiday even, and I can't appreciate your position that you don't ring people up to keep them informed while you know they're waiting. You must have a tab there. Have you not got a thing in the control centre saying, oh look, it's gone on to red, Mr. Rossi's been waiting 8 hours now, we better give him a ring? No, you only ring if I ring you and request a ring and go through all the procedure of ringing you. Your complaint is now closed and this is our final offer and response. That's it, they've washed their hands of it. Sent me 50 quid, final offer, and that's it, we're not responding again. I would like to thank you for taking time to speak with us regarding this. We really appreciate your feedback. Kind regards, customer care. So that is it. So this is my reply back to them. Just basically what I've just told you. You say, quote, I can assure you have made every effort to get in touch with you much sooner, so I'm unable to agree you'd been waiting this long if you hadn't cancelled your call for assistance. What do you mean if I hadn't cancelled my call for assistance? I was waiting this long, over 7 hours, before I cancelled, uppercase. It was only when, after a 7-hour wait, and I was told by Richford Recovery there'd be another 87 minutes, that's an 8.5 hour wait, if they did come, that I decided to cancel. I will definitely not be renewing my membership. I won't be. That's not an idle thing. It runs out in December. if I break down a little thing that I think they might be able to mend or whatever. And my daughter's also on it. She's had okay. She's had them come and a flat battery when she left the lights on, and she couldn't get a spare wheel off when she had a puncture. It was absolutely too tough for her to get off. There came little things again like that, but luckily she hasn't needed a recovery. But come December, when hers runs out as well, I'll be buying her somebody else. I'll definitely not be renewing my membership, as from discussion with friends and many reports online, it seems this is quite a common occurrence with both yourselves and the AA. I think the big ones, the big two, are, okay, they claim to have more patrols on the thing, but I don't know about recovery trucks, but customer care is very, very lacking now. The guy next door to me, he was in AA. I don't know whether it still is. And he was saying, oh, yeah, he says, a similar thing happened to him. Didn't wait that long. He waited about 3 or 4 hours. When they came to recover him, the guy had to drop him off at the first services because he'd reached the maximum hours on his tachograph. And he wasn't allowed to drive anymore. So he had to unload him from the flatbed truck. And then another flatbed truck had to come to the motorway service and pick him up and carry on the journey. They know the person's destination. They know how long the flatbed truck's going to get to him. They can't send somebody with a full amount of hours left legally entitled to drive. So AA's not got. The one I've looked at that seems to get the best reviews is called Start. I'll ask again at the end of this, but any comments below if you're in one that you've had fantastic. Just the recovery part, not the repairing it on the roadside, just the recovery part. Put them below and I'll consider them. Adrian Flux is another one. 2 of these cars broke down on the Euro trip, and the recovery service there in France and Switzerland were good. They came out within 3 or 4 hours and repatriated them back home. It sounds like the car is prone to breakdown, but I can assure you it's not. It's 46,000 miles only it's done. Okay, it's 26 years old, but all the engine, gearbox, running it is BMW motorbike, so that's dead reliable. All the switch gear is Ford, and the disc brakes of Sierra Cosworth, stuff like that. So it's all quality stuff, and it's treated with kid gloves. But being 26-year-old, yeah, it is going to break down more than a brand new car. Yeah, I've pointed out that the ETA voice recording never varied from the next 30 minutes. It's not a real person you're talking to. Never once rang back and kept in the loop without me ringing first. And it's the most appalling treatment I've had from any company. That was, like I say, when I wrote to them, they replied the day after. I replied straight away, and sure enough, yeah, this is our only response. Don't respond to that. I asked them about what this recorded ETA. Why use that? Not had an answer. Had the check. Where's the check? There. Yeah, but unfortunately, like I say, I've got to go to the post office to pay that in. TSB have an app on the phone where you can scan a cheque and all that, but that doesn't work. I've tried that about 15 times, and it doesn't work. So they've sent me some paying in slips, and I've got to go to the post office instead of the A bank, and at least I can pay it in there. So basically, that is it. That is my complaint. Now, like I said at the very beginning, if you have had good service, great. But don't compare just you've broken down and they've come and mended it there, which is good. Like I say, I can't fault them on that. They're out pretty quick, and like I said, the guys on the vans are great. Every single one of them has been nice, skillful, knows his stuff, interested in. A lot of them are car enthusiasts, and they see the car and they say, "Oh wow, what's this?" and all that. And when they learn it's just normal BMW and Ford parts, it makes it a bit easier to repair. But it's when it comes to recovery, towing you away on a flatbed truck. Now, there's quite a few. There's not many actually. 3-wheeler vehicles. There's trikes, Reliant Robin type things, Morgans. So, you know, there are one or two around, so I think they should cater. And like I say, it isn't even specialist. Any flatbed truck will do. And I think I've seen trucks where you can put an adapter in and it can put one wheel in the middle. And like I said, they could even hoist it up at the front and tow it on its back wheel. The whole nose cone unclips in seconds. You could store that on the back of the truck and tip it up the other way. The entire car weighs less than 400 kilograms, 395 kilograms. You can push it with your hand. So it isn't the most impossible thing to recover. We're not talking so specialised it's like recovering a tank or something. But they are really, really lacking when it comes to having to do that and towing it. And they are really lacking in keeping you updated and giving you realistic ETAs. Like I say, if they'd have rung them at 5:30 and they'd have said, sorry, Mr. Ross, we're so unbelievably busy, we won't even get to you till 1:30 in the morning, which was the final ETA, I'd have made other arrangements then. So that's my gripe. Their care once you have broken down and leaving you in the lurch without keeping you informed, and the ridiculous amount of time. So, like I say, if you have had great recovery service from any particular organisation, please let me know in the comments. Please don't dive on me for saying, oh, you're wrong about this, they're a fantastic service, and I've had fantastic service. Like I say, I dare say, you know, I might be in this other one in a minority, but when you do look online, there do seem to be quite a few, and the experience has gone down to my mind in the last 4 years. As I mentioned before, the last time I rung them, I waited 3.5 hours. I didn't wait the full 8 hours. I might have been doing, I don't know, but I gave up after 3.5 and had to arrange a different method of towing home. So yeah, like I say, not good for me. So hopefully it's been of some use. People contemplating that and might make you think of choosing some other organisation. And yeah, so sorry I got a bit mad in the middle, but yeah, you can imagine how I felt. Just sat in my car non-stop from 5:30 at night till I got home at 4:30 in the morning. No, I sat in it since I set off from home at 1:30 in the afternoon, but breakdown wise, I sat in it. There's nowhere else to sit for all them hours, and no roof went open. If it had been snowing or bad weather or really raining, I'd have been even more miserable. So yeah, I've cheered up a bit now. So like I said, hopefully it's been of some use or some interest if you just like hearing a grumpy old man. And I'll catch you for the next one, which will be a proper review. I know I keep promising it, but fingers crossed better weather comes and we can stick that on. I used it late last night, but it still wasn't that hot. I want to get it really, really red hot. If worse comes to worse and winter's coming, I'll heat the shed up with me oil-filled radiator to get it up to temperature, and then I'll put that on to test it. But I just want to test it if possible in a real life scenario. So part 2 on the air conditioning unit behind me coming as soon as I can. Thanks for watching this one. Bye for now.